Welcome.
Can I go ahead and do the moving out since I joined
Good to see you.
Feels good to be seen.
Have
Do
somebody
I
else
need,
do it.
do I need Barb to do it? And then I join. Hey Barb, do the motion to come back. I wasn't here to.
Okay, we need a motion to come out of executive session,
So moved.
Second?
and then is that a roll call?
Yeah. No. All in favor,
Okay,
sorry.
all in favor? Say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, then we'll
Sorry, Barb, who made the motion?
John?
John, Tim, seconded.
Okay.
P-E-D-R-O.
And then we'll return to executive session. All in favor?
Not return.
Return from executive session into regular council. All in favor? Is that just a,
I think you already did that, though.
Yeah, we did that one.
Already done it.
okay, now what? Return?
We're good.
We're
I'll
back.
take over
We're
for
good.
you
Here.
All right.
Yeah, pass.
In a good way. I got it. All right.
Moving.
We got our approval of minutes from our regular council meeting, July 23rd, 2018, and our special council meeting, August 7th, 2018, and we'll need a motion and a second.
I move to approve.
Second.
Are there any changes to either meeting or discussion or comments? John did.
John did.
Make sure we speak up here. All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next, we have citizens' comments. And first on the agenda, I have Todd Dickerson. With the Waterville Economic Development Corporation. If you don't mind, state your name and who you're with.
Todd Dickerson, representing the Waterville Economic Development Council. Good evening and hello again. Just a quick update from our organization. Our mission is really to promote the city of Waterville's assets for economic development, for job growth, and increasing the revenue, the tax revenue stream of the city. And in that effort, I just thought I would offer an update. I've been on with the WDC now for about 9 months, and so just some quick facts, kind of some things that we've done and where your investment is headed. Our total membership is up a net of 6 members. So proud to say that we're getting more companies, more private sector companies to come to the table and support the effort. Our annual dues that we collect are up small, but again, it's a step in the right direction, 2.8% from 2017 and a 1% from a high in 2016. So not astronomical, but I like that we're headed in a positive direction. We are at full strength on the board. We had a couple of vacant board chair seats the last several months, and now all of our board chairs are filled. Our newest board members are Jackie Salter from Genoa Bank, Dr. Jim Fritz from the Anthony Wayne Schools. Happy to have him on board. And now representing council is Rod Fry. So I think those are all great steps in the right direction. One of our goals and our missions is to connect with the private sector, and it's tough to say it's from the industrial sector because some of these companies aren't pure industrial or manufacturing, but they're the larger companies, the larger employers here in the market, and we track about 20 of those companies. And happy to report that we've at least had meetings face-to-face and started a relationship with 14 of those companies. So that's a 70% hit rate of getting out and talking to the companies that support the city or are involved with the city. And as we try to create jobs, I'm also pleased to report that we've been working on 2 job creation projects, 2 expansion projects here. There's 2 companies here in the city that are making plans and trying to decide if they want to move forward with expansion projects. And those 2 projects combined would be about, probably somewhere between $2 and $2.5 million in capital investment. And I think somewhere between probably 20 and 30 jobs created. And again, that's, with both projects together. It's too soon to say if we'll have, if we'll get 2 yes votes from those companies. I think one is definitely headed in the right direction, and I think the other one's maybe a 50-50 shot. But our goal and our mission is to help those companies and sort of work them through the process and try to take down any barriers that they may have to saying yes to the city and making their expansion happen. So that's just a quick update for you. If you have any questions, but
Mayor, if I may, Todd, as you mentioned, we've come a long way. We started off, we're all volunteers on this board, and our dear friend Phyllis Hyder was the original, I once almost said instigator, but that's the wrong word, originator, organizer of the WDC, and consequently, we grew, and I put it like a school. We were in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, now we're in junior high, because we got somebody with Todd's talent. And Todd knows a lot about the community, both here in Waterville and then the larger community in Northwest Ohio. So we're very pleased to have Todd part-time with us leading the way. And as you mentioned, we've got a great board of directors, and meetings are always open to the public. We do have those meetings annually and even monthly. So just want to thank Todd publicly for helping us get further down the track, and want to thank our roots, Phyllis, who helped us get to the stage we are today. And certainly want to recognize the staff. Jim Bagdonis obviously leads us in many other ways as well. And the support of the mayor and council, along with our, we call them investors. They're not necessarily members, they're investors, because they're investing in the Waterville Economic Development Corporation, excuse me. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Pedro. Anyone else have questions for Todd? Thank you for your efforts, Todd. We appreciate you coming.
I appreciate the support. Thanks.
Next, I have a couple more citizen comments. Ken Dickey. Ken Dickey, do you have a comment for public comment? You can come up to the podium.
Not so much a comment as it is a worry.
All right. If you don't mind, state your name and your address in there.
Okay, my name's Ken Dickey. I've been living here about 40 years, and my address is 10 Gatewood Road, Waterville, 43566, planet Earth, at least last I knew it. But the thing that concerns me is we get our water from Bowling Green. Now, Perrysburg's thinking about doing it, and maybe Maumee. We're building, what, 250 some apartments. Are they going to be able to handle all that? That's a lot of water. I mean, and if Perrysburg hooks up with them also, they're just growing. I just can't believe all the growth over there in Perrysburg. And is my concern. I can just drink so much bottled water. And I go back to the time when we used to draw our water out of the river here. So, and it got dry sometimes too, and a little difficult. I remember they used to have a gauge hanging on the side of the water tank up there in this by the park, and if it hit a certain direction, nobody washed cars, nobody did anything. Well, but they couldn't do. We had to conserve, and everybody in this at that time a village, pulled together, and we managed to get through. And I imagine Ken can address to that, because I know he was around in those days. So it's just a concern I have, and I just wonder if anybody can make me feel better that we're not going to go without water. And again, fires. You poured thousands of gallons on a fire, and that's an awful lot of water leaving. So that's my concern, and if anybody can address it as to what will be happening, I'd appreciate hearing from them.
I can tell you that when they were interested, I had the same questions about their capacity. They do have excess capacity over after we were brought into their system. I don't have the exact number for you. I don't know if you know their exact number, Jim, But before they can sell to them, they'll have to have enough capacity and take into consideration growth. I do know the other two towns, I mean, the most recent news is about BG, but they've also, I think, looked at some other sources. I don't know that their final decision has been made.
Well, the city of Bowling Green would be just as concerned about the capacity as we would. And as the mayor said, when we entered into a contract with the city of Bowling Green, they had plenty of extra capacity to serve the city of Waterville and our customers. Perrysburg alone uses about 8 times as much water as we do in a given day. We're about 500,000 gallons a day, and Perrysburg's about 4 million. So the city of Bowling Green would not enter into a contract with Perrysburg or any of those other entities unless they were confident that they would be able to have the capacity to serve them, because the customers of the city of Bowling Green would be in the same predicament that we would be, and they have no interest in putting themselves in that situation. So if they did enter into contracts with other entities that use that much water, I'm sure they would request financial contributions from those entities to expand the capacity of their plant, possibly even build another reservoir. As far as the Maumee River, Bowling Green draws water from the river a bit upstream from where Waterville used to, and the river is very shallow and rocky, as you're well aware here, where our water plant was there next to Waterworks Park. City of Bowling Green actually has 2 intakes in the Maumee River, and the river bottom there is a fairly deep, lengthy pool in the river. So they're drawing from a much better place in the river than we used to draw from.
That sounds reasonable. I feel a lot better. I was just ready to start going over, taking my showers at the Y to conserve
In
water.
Perrysburg or
Thank you very much.
Toledo. Thank you, Mr. Dickey. I have one more, Claudette, if you don't mind stating your name and address as well at the beginning.
Claudette Bratzloff, 6957 Silverbrook Court, Waterville, of course, and Waterville Meadows is where we're from. And the reason why we're here is we have coyote attacks in our neighborhood, and I understand that there are other coyote spottings that we've had in our city. I talked to the chief of police, and I had learned that and wondered if there were any concerns from other people. We have other people that have come with us tonight, and 2 of the families have had their dogs actually attacked, and very concerned about whether they'd even make it. We're very fortunate that they have. You know, you sometimes wonder if you're concerned about coyotes in your backyard in a subdivision if you don't have a dog or cat. But the concern is a lot greater because so many people are unaware of what's going on. And we have a little neighbor door type text that goes back and forth, and
Next
the ones
door, yeah.
next door,
I'm-
and the
it's an
ones
app.
that are connected with this, we are updated on everything that's going on. But there are so many with the new subdivision that's going in the back there. One of the coyote, one of the attacks was actually right on Dana Ray, right where the trees and the little, so that's where the new homes are going. And I've done a lot of reading, as so many of us have, and you know, you think, oh, you know, the dogs, but how devastating it would be to have a youngster in their yard and a coyote would attack their puppy. And it is not saying that coyotes don't attack people, because they do. There were a lot of YouTube information that we got from Nancy Perry that had sent to us, and I forwarded on. And oh, it's amazing, daytime. So I guess my concern is, I feel that it's critical that our citizens in our area, this is the safest city in Waterville, and we love this. We love Waterville. All of us do, and we can't say enough about it. But we are living in a fear right now. I understand that if we can get DNR is who both Perrysburg and Maumee have gone to, and they did get the assistance they needed to relocate these coyotes. When they're relocated, the way I understand, is they then proceed to go elsewhere. I guess my concern is what can we do, not to, put anything negative on our town, because that's not what we want, but we want people to know what's out there before we hear the next person say, my dog got killed, my cat was taken away. This is what we're having. They're jumping over fences. They jumped over a fence in their very backyard, which butts up to my backyard. And to think that, I don't have to explain the fear that people are living with. We need to get flyers or something out to every single homeowner, just so they're aware to put the lights on at night. When you take your puppy dog out or children are outside, have an awareness of what this is all about. I'm under the impression that we cannot use, a phone call was made to DNR, and they said that we do not have a dedicated officer like Perrysburg and Maumee, so they cannot help us. I think that needs to be checked into. What is a dedicated officer? Can someone become one or whatever in order to make this happen? So that's my other question. I know that people will help to put flyers out or whatever, but I think it's something, we're not real sure how to handle it, but I think it has to be addressed soon.
Thanks for coming. After the last meeting, we had a little discussion on it when probably one of the first things were reported. I think one of the dogs they didn't see it, but they're assuming it was a coyote, the first one. And we did put some things on the website that Nancy probably sent you and did some
Yes.
research. And then the thought was to get the DNR involved, because obviously in the city, we're not allowed to
This is right.
take care of anything like they would on a farm in the good old days. So I'm from more the country, animals are out there, and that's kind of what happens sometimes. But my concern is they're a little more, I live by the same exact woods the last 20 years. I moved in '98, so I'm a little closer to them. And when your subdivision came in, actually, we didn't see any more animals, but it changed the landscape because those homes weren't there where you are. It was just
Right.
our neighborhood. So
Between
every
that and
time,
the bridge
you are
work.
correct, yeah, I'm over there, and every time, and we have a field right behind us, both sides.
Right.
Every time something happens, it's changing the ecosystem a little bit. But I think our choice is to see if the Department of Natural Resources and people such as that would help with,
The gentleman.
because it seems like you have a little more activity than normal. The animals are there. Usually they're afraid of us, the 20 years I've been there, and they don't come in. So it is kind of interesting they're coming, you're right on the tree line, but that they're
And
coming
like
in.
6:30 in the evening.
They
It's
are
certainly not
like
dark.
deer. It's like dusk and dawn, just
Well-
FYI. But I'm not saying they're like deer, but
Right.
that's when you'll see the
The
activity.
one YouTube
Yeah.
that was sent to
Yeah.
us that we forwarded on, that I found very interesting, this gal had a 6-foot privacy fence.
Right.
She's in her backyard, and she's got a litter of puppies. All of a sudden, in the day, the sun was shining bright, coyote jumped over the 6-foot fence, took a puppy, tried to get back over the fence, but the puppy was a little chunker and couldn't make it over the fence with the puppy. The puppy did get killed, and
Right.
the coyote ran away.
Right.
That's in the middle of the day.
Right. There's no rhyme or reason, but
So
they're
there's
worse
no-
at night, right? So
They're worse at
people
night,
being
so we
aware.
go out with flashlights and we have
Make
motion
noise.
lights
Right.
and we're, I'll be yelling loud and clear if I see one, but I know about it.
Right.
These people know about, they've experienced watching. The local vet, I understand, saw 5 animals brought in that had been attacked in 2-week period.
And was that all in Waterville Meadows? All in that same neighborhood?
Yes.
All right. Wow. Yeah. So
Coming
we started.
from the new, the new area there, and I wonder how many people buying one of those homes, and I'm sure many of them have little children and puppy dogs to go to make the perfect family, they don't know about this.
Right.
That's what is so concerning.
Right, and what we can do is do as much as we can to disseminate the information as well. Especially new people have to come in here, so we don't want to scare the new people, obviously.
you don't
but
wanna
living
scare 'em.
in the homes that you're talking about recently built, they're even by a bigger group of woods, and yes,
Right.
so
Right.
people, we're actually moving into their territory, so that's part of what we're seeing.
But I guess it's part of our
Yeah.
duty as,
To be aware and tell,
Residents.
and as residents, tell your neighbors. Obviously I got on the app because I was already on there and I read through it, so I'm hoping that a ton of people did that because that's actually our neighborhoods, so I'm hoping that people are reading it. Cause education's going to be the best, and if they could be trapped or whatever,
and
that's
moved out
what,
of our area. Not that another one would never come in again, but
Right.
at least it would just be a little bit
Yeah.
uplifting for the residents.
so we could probably find out about the DNR officer dedicated part. It probably has to do something with the city or the size or the parks they
I'm
have.
thinking that's something, you
Right,
know,
but we could ask. I think we actually have a couple DNR people that live in our town, so yeah.
that would be good. So anything that we can do to help
Spread the word.
spread the word,
Let your neighbors know.
well, we're doing that, but
Be a
you
good
know,
neighbor, but right.
yeah.
We have, and send people to that posting. They put some time in on it, to try to collect the information
Right,
so that we can help people.
right.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
thank you very much.
thank you for coming.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for your comments.
Thank you.
Do we have any other citizen comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to staff reports. First, we have Mr. Bagdonis, our administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members have a copy of my report. The only thing I'd like to touch on is, it's a little bit ahead, but, looking at the calendar, the second Monday of November, is actually going to be the Veterans Day holiday. Since November 11th falls on a Sunday, it'll be observed on the 12th, so we can finalize the, meeting schedule. I was wondering if council would want to move the meeting that day, possibly to the next day on Tuesday, or
What date is that?
that would be Tuesday, November 13th.
I think that would be fine. Does anybody have that far out a
I
conflict?
think that would be fine.
All right.
The offices are closed on Monday, aren't they?
Correct. That'd be the observed Veterans Day holiday.
Yeah.
That take a motion?
I'll make a
Move to-
motion that we
move the
move it
meeting
to Tuesday, the 13th of November.
Second?
I made the motion, Mary seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
All
That's the end of my report.
Oh, that was pretty easy. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Bagdonis? All right, next we have our law director.
No
Mr.
report
Donnelly.
tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. We have our finance director. He's got a report.
No report.
Mr. Gokenhour.
Evening. Council has my report, which is the second quarter budget report for 2018, and it covers the period of April 1st to June 30th of this year. And we did present this report to the Finance Committee at their meeting on August 17th, and they reviewed it and approved it. We usually look at the we try to keep a close eye on the water and sewer operating funds, and at the end of the second quarter, they were the water operating was about 45% of our estimated revenue, and the sanitary sewer operating fund was about 46%. But taking a look at historically taking a look at where we are at the end of the second quarter with our with these operating funds. Typically, we don't go over 50%, and since we're a month behind in our water billing, we really don't get any of the seasonal consumption to kick in until the third quarter of the year. So historically, it runs between 42 and 47%. So we're never really at 50% in recent history in regards to our operating water or sanitary sewer operating funds. In terms of revenue, the general fund's about 53%. Property taxes are tracking as they should. Municipal income tax is as it should be. Local government payments about 50%. EMS service fees are at 48%, and our refuse fee is at 51%. We have our dedicated funds, which are dedicated for specific purposes, and those are tracking between 33 and 100% of budget. We do have some transfers that we have to make before the end of the year, and one of those is in the Parks and Green Space Fund, so we'll have to do that before the end of the year, and that is, reflects the 33% of the revenue in that fund. The 5-year capital operating fund is at about 50% of budget, and that's good because we did receive some note revenue in July, so that even more revenue there. I talked about the water operating, the 610 fund, and it typically increases in usage as the summer kicks in here, and then revenue for the sewer operating and debt funds, they all seem to be tracking where they should. And again, the majority of the revenue in the 640 and 660 funds is from our notes that we sell in July. The general fund expenditures, we're at about 43% there. The dedicated funds expenditures are 0 to 59%, and our largest expenditure of any fund happens to be the Safety City Fund, the crime prevention fund. So we're kind of slow in our expenditures in those particular funds. The 5-year capital, we do have a lot of construction work that we've bid out, but we've only had about 18% of our budgeted expenditures in the 5-year capital. And then our enterprise funds, the 600 funds, we're 0 to 50% of budget, and as the year goes on, typically, we pay our debt service, our second part of our debt service in the latter part of the year, and then we have to pay our notes off from the previous year, which the majority of that comes out of those funds. Overall, the revenues at the end of the second quarter, $4,876,152, and our expenses, $3,526,293. So we're running behind a little on our overall revenues and doing a little better on our expenses since they're at about 31%. For the month of June, we ended the month with a cash balance of $6,140,019. Investments at the end of June, $22,562. And then we had our reader reports for June and July. June, we collected $331,499 in income tax. July, we collected $364,040. Year-to-date total is $2,206,390, and at the end of July, we're at 63.6% of our budgeted revenue for income tax.
I have a question on the first page of the revenues.
Okay.
The credit card that you probably had to guess, since we're new at taking credit cards, are we taking more than you thought? We're like at 96%. It's a small amount of revenue, but
Right.
you budgeted, because we had no idea, right? But
Exactly.
Are they being used, is my question?
I would say quite a bit.
Okay.
Actually, a lot more than we thought.
Okay.
I would say every week, 1 or 2 credit cards comes through, which is good. So
I just thought it might turn to all credit card. Second thing, miscellaneous revenue, we're almost at the budget, and that's probably a guess as well. Anything big in there? The almost 12,000?
and that's in the general fund, or?
Yeah. Yep, at the bottom. Probably nothing large that,
Sales from, we sold
The gov
some
deals.
equipment this year, and we sold the ambulance, some other vehicles.
oh, yeah,
So,
that's probably what it is.
yeah. We also had a workers' comp rebate, which I believe was
Oh, the
about
rebate.
$22,000, and we had to split that amongst all the funds that,
So general.
so some of that went into the general fund.
Got it. Thank you.
Other than that,
I got a question. Is August on here for income tax?
no, it isn't.
How'd that look the first?
The August collection was a little bit down in comparison to last August. We did collect $295,940. So our year-to-date total is $2,445,588. So now we're up to about 70% of our estimated revenue for at the end of August. for
What's
income
it?
tax.
Do you remember off the top of your head the increase from 17 to 18 actual? Because we were at 7.81 for July, end of July, so it probably barely went down if it was almost
Well,
the same.
I know in terms of our, month to date.
The year-to-date growth.
Yeah, we're ahead, but you know how it always goes, it fluctuates during the year.
Possibly still 7%.
Well, I know we were about 3% ahead in July, but,
Am I reading that wrong? It says 7.81 for end of July
okay.
on page actual. I always look at the actual year-to-date, month-to-date. It sounds like the number you collected, 295, is very close to the year before, so it's got to be just about the same.
I know it went down a little, but I guess August is one of our slower
It's
months.
still moving on though,
Yeah,
higher
it's-
than we thought.
yes,
It's definitely
yes,
over 5%.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I threw you one you didn't have on there. So. Any other questions?
I think compared to the budget, we're probably in the range of 2 to 3% ahead
Yeah.
of budget.
Exactly. Yeah, which is great. I like the actual that page. That's a good. It's a good 8-month trend. That was both payments.
It does seem
for
like it,
August,
yeah, and.
I know you're knocking on wood, being conservative. I like it.
And I mentioned last year how we had our net profits were off, and
Right.
but they're higher than they were last year. and
It seems like that has come back.
they're keeping up with what we expected, so it looks like a good year so far.
It's
So
good
far, so
economic information. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Our treasurer, Mr. Schultz.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. I believe you all have my June report. Once again, we do have all the accounts reconciled through June, and the nice thing about this report is every fund I have on my report is the highest it has been this year. And actually, if you look at the balance of all funds, as Mr. Gokenauer mentioned, we're at about $6,100,000. It's the highest in the last 18 months. Primarily, one reason, in June we got about $575,000 of Fed and state reimbursements on the Anthony Wayne Trail project. So it's a little deceiving, but it's still nice to be able to see. So once again, you'll see the general fund is up slightly over last month. Again, when you look at the capital fund, you can see that's jumped up tremendously because of that $575,000 that we collected. And again, the water and sewer fund are up a little bit over last month. Again, all at the highest they've been at this year. So through June, we're doing fine.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have our police chief, Chief LaGrange.
Evening, council members. A couple of things. We are on paper back at full strength at the police department now with the hiring of Matt Nisley. He's been in field training now for a couple of weeks and is progressing actually quite well. He came to us, was a part-timer in Walbridge and also worked full-time at Toledo Correctional. So he's kind of worked both sides of the fence, the enforcement side and the correction side. But so far he's doing quite well. But as I said, on paper we're at full strength. Actually, we're down 2 officers right now, actually, because of course Officer Nisley is in field training, so he's not really filling the slot. He's with the training officer. And we have 1 officer that's still recovering from a bit of minor surgery. A couple more weeks there, I think, and that officer should be back to full duty. The other thing is I did get notification our new car should be in now at statewide. The sales rep, Natasha, is supposed to come up, I think she said Wednesday, excuse me, and pick up all of the gear that transferred, that was pulled out of the old car, the computer, the radar, the radios, I think that was it, the weapon mount, and take all that down, and they're supposed to start the install on the 4th, which is next Tuesday. So give it a week, so about 2 weeks now we should have that other car. The old 74, this one will become 74. The old 74 has already been stripped. It's sitting out at Public Works. When the company comes in to put the decals on the new car, they will also go out and strip the decals off the old car for us, and then we'll get that on Gov Deals and get that one sold. So, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for the chief?
I have a couple questions about that, the coyote attacks. One is, can you just talk about that dedicated officer a little bit more, what that position is?
I have no idea.
Because it's
Oh,
the
okay.
DNR. the
Some
Department of Natural Resources.
some departments have not a police officer. Well, when I was chief in Tiffin, we had a animal control officer who was not a police officer. And he had a trapper's license, so he was able to trap the animals. But I think that they're wrong about one thing. They don't relocate mammals. They destroy them. They have to by state law. So my trapping officer there in Tiffin, a couple of days he was off, we'd get a raccoon or something with a trap, and I didn't have the heart to shoot it. So I'd take it out in the woods someplace, and I'd always hear about it the next time he came back. I wasn't allowed to do that. But I don't believe they relocate them. They may tell them that, but I don't think they do. So, and as I pointed out to the lady when I talked to her, I said, you have to remember, we're invading their territory. It's not the other way around. And I realize that they can be a danger. They are very adaptable animals. They're kind of like pigeons. They can adapt to anything. And the more enticement that's out there, whether it's a small, easy prey like a small animal, or food that's left out, or even garbage that's left out, that's going to attract them, and they're going to adapt to that habitat. One of the things we did was we put a link to a video on the website along with this flyer that's back here. There's a link to that too. It's an ODNR flyer. But it's a video I found from, actually it's from Narragansett Bay in Rhode Island. And part of it is very specific to them, but the beginning of it, you have to excuse the acting. That's a professional opinion, but the information is good. And it shows some things that you can do to actually what they call haze the animals to try to get them to move on. And the message there is if you give them enough harassment, eventually they're going to find an easier place. Eventually they're going to move on. One of the things that I suspect will happen is as we get more construction out there on the other side of Waterville Mount Clover Road, and especially once they start taking those woods down out there for the apartment development, I think their habitat is probably going to move west too, so we should see less and less of them. Now, I don't know about to the north, over that way, but some of the stuff coming from the west and moving through those fields, I think we'll see less of that. But at the end of the day, the coyote is going to go where the prey is. I mean, they're opportunistic predators, and they're going to go where the prey is.
So has the DNR been out here then addressing our issue?
I've not talked to the DNR. I believe they have. I've not talked to the DNR personally. I'm not sure what they're, like I said, they will refer you to a trapper. I don't believe they'll do it themselves. Now, we're certainly not going to go out and shoot the animals. Now, if we arrive at a situation where there is a threat, well then, yeah, then we have to. But for the most part, we're not going to go out and hunt the coyotes. That wouldn't be safe for anybody.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Has there been an increase in some juveniles in town or breaking into cars? I had someone ask me today in Bridgehampton on Friday, the police were called, and they were in that neighborhood in that area. But they've had a lot of car alarms going off in the middle of the night, and then there were 8 kids. I'm gonna guess children, I don't know, teenagers, could be older. But I believe they may have found a few of them. So I didn't know if you've had a problem.
I haven't seen any car break-ins.
Okay.
We did have one theft over that way out of a truck. This was a pickup truck, and it was a piece of equipment used in concrete work, rather expensive piece of equipment. We're to the point now that between surveillance video, one of your neighbors over there that has surveillance on his house, he provided us with some video, and an individual just by chance happened to try to pawn the very same piece of equipment over in Delta the next day. We know who did that. We're just trying to get him in here so we can talk to him. He's ducking us. He knows we're looking for him.
This was just a bigger group on Friday night, 1 a.m.-ish, and there were about 8 of them, and they were going up to all the cars and along the street, and somebody finally called.
Yeah, did not see that.
Just letting you know, because and then I see on here on the same area, but it was July, there was well, that could have been the theft you were talking about. But it was just, I just didn't know. Occasionally we get groups of kids that go through town versus out-of-towners in town trying to break in.
Yeah, on the weekends, it's not unusual to have kids out roaming the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And sometimes they get into trouble. But looking at the reports this morning, I didn't see anything from over the weekend reported. I mean, on paper. But it doesn't, like I said.
Oh, I see what you're saying, but.
The difference between being called and actually having a written report. So I'll look tomorrow and see
check on Friday.
what came out of that.
Would have been Saturday, actually, at 1 a.m.
I'll look at the dispatch and see what they got out of that.
I'm pretty sure they might have found a few of them. I don't know. They didn't write it up. Anything else for the chief? All right, thank you. Next, we have our fire chief.
Good evening. First on the list is July was an average for the month for runs for us. August has slowed down a little bit. Our double tone runs during July have slowed down. However, on weekends, it's at night, it's tough to get people coming in on standby. That's been kind of a dragging point. We have one part-timer starting this week, Wednesday. Second is hopefully in the middle of September, once he gets past his physical. And I got a call from Washington Township's fire chief. One of their volunteers is going to be moving into town. Another one right across the street from the fire station. And he's been well recommended. He's called me already, and he can't wait to get on. So that'll help us out. One point of good news is Story Point, the independent living facility. The three-story building was granted occupancy, partial occupancy this morning by the Lucas County Building Department. And part of the one story, which holds the kitchen and the dining area and mechanical rooms. So that's going to open and running. The alarm systems are activated. We're ready for them. So we've been through there numerous times. I took the White House Fire Department in there again last Tuesday night, and they said, yeah, we're going to be here to help you, but you got your hands full. And we know that already. So I think everybody's waiting for the first run to come in so they can be the first one in the door. Make history. So that's really all I have for.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have our Public Works Director, Mr. Blair.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. You have a copy of my report. Just a couple of things I want to touch on real quick. We did have a pre-construction meeting for the Michigan Avenue Phase 2 waterline project. That's scheduled to start on September 4th, and the completion date, at least for right now, it is November 24th, weather permitting. So that'll be there'll be a project notification put on our website as well as our digital sign at Prairie Park. And also all the residents within the scope of the work area will be notified as well. If you recall, that's a 12-inch water line that runs east of Wilshire Drive on the north side down to Prairie Park, and then down the trail north to North Street where it crosses the trail, and it'll tie in there. We do have a pre-con scheduled also August 29th for the 2018 paving project. We'll get a schedule from the contractor at that time, and then we'll put a project notice as well on the website and also on the digital sign. That'll be north and south Maldy Lane, Kara Street, and 165 foot of Rutherford Drive, north of Freedom. Really the only thing else I got is I want to remind her the Fishing Derby at Waterworks Park, which will be held September 15th. We still have several registrations available. You can pick those up down here at the municipal building or on our website at waterville.org. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Mr. Blair. Any questions? Yes.
Kenny, on the paving program, the pre-bid's the 29th. What's the expected start date and completion date?
Don't know yet. We won't get scheduled from the contractor till we have the pre-con.
Okay. But I presume it'll be finished this season?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we hope so. If not, then there's another avenue we take.
All right. Thank you.
Other questions? All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Next, we have communications from council. I'll start with Mr. Bruno.
Well, I didn't realize we would have so much talk tonight regarding coyotes, but I had a resident come up to me about 2 weeks ago regarding a coyote sighting, and it was, she lives near Bear Park. So, you know, I think a lot of what we're thinking with the coyotes is that they're in the area of where these, you know, woods and forests are, but, you know, seeing them in a more city area is kind of concerning too. So I told her I'd make mention of that, and I didn't know if we had a public service announcement on our TV channel but that might make sense to go along and put that forward.
Good idea. Yep.
That's the end of my report.
I think our newsletter already went out. That
Okay.
would have been good, too. Mrs. Bruno?
No report tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you.
No report this evening.
Following suit. Mr. Rosie?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor, thank you.
All right. Mr. Pedro, you have a report?
We already had it, Mr. Todd Dickerson, so it's good. No, I don't have anything else to add.
All right.
Mary, you're up.
No report, Your Honor.
Thank you. Next, under old business, I want to flip the first two and read ordinance 15-18 first. It's an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Waterville by granting a special use permit to construct a self-storage facility on a 5.1 acre parcel of land on the east side of Prairie Boulevard, south of State Route 64, Zone C4, and declaring an emergency. Our first reading was held July 23rd, 2018. Our second reading is scheduled for this evening, August 27th. Our third reading and public hearing and legislative action scheduled for September 10th, 2018, our next meeting. So that will be our second reading. Do we have any commenter this evening on that one? All right. Then we will flip back to the top of old business to discussion. Possible formation of a Union Cemetery District with Waterville Township in the village of White House. And this evening, we have the honor and pleasure of having a township trustee here with us. Thank you for coming, Brett Warner. And we want to continue this discussion. Council previously received information which our administrator worked on, and we've talked about it, but this evening we'd like to bring it back up for further discussion. And I don't know if Brett, if you would like to make any comments? Or
Questions?
they may. Do you guys have some questions? Yeah, come on up.
I know you've had some discussion about this. I don't know how much of the background you have, but Waterville Township has always taken care of 5 cemeteries. 3 of those cemeteries are in White House, one of which is active. That's the White House Cemetery. And then there's the Waterville Cemetery, which is probably one of the largest of the 5 cemeteries. And then there's one cemetery that actually belongs to us, and it is inactive. So we have, of the 5, 3 of them are inactive, 2 of them are active. We have a staff, our maintenance personnel. We have two people who take care of the cemeteries, but they're also our maintenance people. They are responsible for mowing the grass of the cemeteries. They're responsible for cleanup. They're responsible for making sure that when the cement needs to be set for the headstones, they're taking care of that. One of our maintenance personnel is actually a sexton. He is somebody who can open the graves, prepare the graves, close the graves, but he also is the person who is in charge of the maps that we have of the cemeteries. He's the person who is directing people where they want to purchase them. So they spend a lot of their time on the cemeteries. It's probably, at some point in time, I don't know when it was, but we discovered that those cemeteries really aren't Waterville Townships. They belong to the city of Waterville. They belong to the village of White House. The only one that we're really actually have to maintain is our small closed one out on Winslow Road. But we've continued to do that. Mr. Disher negotiated a contract many years ago, a contract in which we were able to keep the fees that were collected. So if someone purchased a cemetery plot, we would keep those fees. And if there was the opening and the closing, those fees were kept by Waterville Township to help offset the cost of taking care of them. Looking at it though, and I got some numbers for you. If my phone doesn't die, I have some numbers for you here. So these numbers were prepared by our fiscal officer, and I'm going to just kind of round these numbers off. But so we have 2016, 17, and 18, and I'm going to share with you. So 2016 receipts, fees, sale of cemetery lots, and some other things. that is listed as other, and I don't know what the specifics of those are, but in 2016, it was $31,800. 2017, it was $43,000. Again, I'm rounding these off. And in 2018, year to date, as of her preparation of this, which was about a little less than a month ago, it's $22,500. We also have department expenditures, so we expend money for the equipment that we are using. This is mostly what this is that. And so the expenditures for 2016 were about 3,500, 2017 about 2,200, and year to date 2018 about 2,600. That does not include the salaries of those two people that are working. That's where we're at. And I don't speak, when I say we, I don't speak for the other trustees. We've been in discussion about this quite a bit during our meetings, but one option was to simply get out of the cemetery business. We only have one small little cemetery. We could probably have a local agents, private company bid for that, and it would probably cost us minimal to take care of that little cemetery. Actually, I could probably go mow it in 10 minutes with a push mower. It's really not that big. And since there's no activity there, and so that's one thought, is getting out of the cemetery business. But then our headache would become your headache. And so in wanting to be good neighbors, we wanted to come up with a solution for taking care of these cemeteries, and that's when Mr. Bagdonis mentioned Perrysburg has a union cemetery, and that sounded like a good option. We don't have the numbers that you're most interested in, and those numbers would be how much is it costing us for those personnel who are doing all those services in the cemeteries. We don't have those numbers because we've never broken it down. That said, they're also doing road maintenance. When they're not doing cemeteries, they're pushing snow. They're mowing the sides of what roads we have in the township. So those numbers have never been broken down. We now are having them break that down. So when they're doing their daily routine, they're now telling us how much time they spent in the cemetery, how much time they spent on township maintenance. So it's too early for us to really come up with a breakdown because they just began this in May. But I can give you my guess. My big guess is going to be that when those numbers come out, it's probably going to exceed 70%. That's just my own personal opinion. I could be way off. But I base that on where do I find them at. Over the years, when I've had to find them, I don't go look for them at their maintenance building. I go look for them in the cemeteries. If I'm calling them and they're not answering, I know it's because they have a headset on, because they're sitting on a mower. And that's where I go find them. I'll go look in those cemeteries because they don't hear their phone ringing. So if I want to talk to them, we have meetings in the cemetery. That's how it happens, because that's where they are. That's where I believe they spend a majority of their time. We're going to be going a step further here soon. We're going to ask them to break it down even more. We're going to ask them to break it down. How much time are you spending Waterville Township maintenance? How much time are you spending White House cemeteries? And how much time are you spending Waterville Cemetery? We should have done that in May. It was an afterthought. So we're kind of change that up on them to kind of break it down a little bit more, just to get those numbers, to how much time they're spending. None of this includes capital improvements, which is one of my biggest concerns about these cemeteries. Your cemetery here in Waterville is going to need some resurfacing work, whether it's a chip and seal. I don't know what the answer is going to be, but it's going to need some work on the roads back there. So capital improvements isn't really, we've always done that. If a tree needed to be taken down, and there's some big trees in some of these older cemeteries. So if a tree needed to be done, we usually contract that out because we want someone who does it on a regular basis for safety reasons to come in and take care of that. So stuff like that isn't even in these numbers. Those type of capital improvement stuff, a lot of which needs to be addressed pretty soon. And one of the nice things about the Union Cemetery is that we could probably set a budget for things like capital improvements. So I don't know if there's any more information that I can provide to you tonight. I'm willing to answer any questions. I am not an expert, but this is where we're at today. I will say one more thing. White House came to us recently and said, what would the real cost be if we were to just simply change the contract rather than us just keeping those fees, and we wanted to pay the actual cost? What would it cost us? What would we bill them for that time? And so, again, our fiscal officer spent some time working on the two individuals that are in our maintenance department, their salary, a portion of their Medicare, a portion of their PERS retirement system, a portion of the premium that's paid for their insurance, all of that stuff, workers' comp, all that stuff added in there. The hourly wage, that if we were to do that, if we were to bill actual cost to White House for one of our people would be, and again, I'll ballpark these if you don't mind, would be about $30 an hour for one and about $15 to $16 for the other one. So if we were to bill them the actual cost of what we're spending time in cemetery just for those employees, that's what the bill would probably be for those two people. So I don't know if that helps you at all, but those are numbers that we've come up with at White House's request.
So $45 an hour for both of them?
Basically.
With not sure how many hours they're putting in.
And that would have to be something, you know how every year that changes the workers' comp, you know, your premiums change, so it would be on a
starting point.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, thank you. That is good information. Does anybody have questions after?
What are the buildings at the back of the cemetery in Waterville? Are those?
Those are yours.
Those are ours.
Those are yours. And the roof is going bad on the garage.
What do we
the
use
roof needs attention. And that's another thing. We, over the years, have put a lot of money into that building because that's where our maintenance guys are housed. That's where they go to work every day. That's where their desk is. That's where the trucks are. They take them to wherever they're going to be going that day. So that's where they're housed. So we put a lot of work in there. There's a new heating system in there, in that building that our township took care of. I mean, there's been a lot of improvements, and maybe not necessarily improvements, but a lot of things that we fixed over the years that, you know, we're taking that cost on. And I don't know what the final number is of how much of it that, you know, when it's all said and done, how much we were taking on. I don't think I want that to be the focus of the conversation. I think I want the focus of the conversation is to be, what is the big fix? You know, as a community, you know, for Waterville, White House, and Waterville Township, what is the down the road? How are we going to handle this in the future? I don't want to sit and worry about what happened in the past. What are we going to do in the future? And that's why I was excited about Mr. Begnos' idea. So.
And what's the condition of the other cemetery, the roads and the other?
White House's cemetery roads, in my opinion, and I'm not a professional, but just we go to that cemetery quite often for unfortunate reasons, but it's rough, much more. It's in need of a lot more work than yours. Yeah. The closed ones aren't really a concern because they do not receive much activity at all, and two of them don't even have a road that needs to be. You know, the biggest concern there are trees that fall on the headstones, and then you have to, you know, clean up the debris and then also repair the headstones. But I don't even think that that's that much of an issue because there just isn't much activity in them.
So in the inactive or full cemeteries, I'm guessing, so it's just the mowing, the seasonal?
Mostly, primarily just the mowing, the cleanup.
And they're smaller, if I remember the numbers, they're pretty small.
Yes, there's one, the one that most people would recognize is when you're coming down Finsel Road from 64 heading toward the high school.
Right.
It's on your left-hand side. The other one is on the corner of Werkley Road and Cemetery Road. So that's kind of visible. And then obviously ours is back on Winslow Road. You would not know it's there unless you were actively looking for it.
But the two active obviously were the bigger.
Those are the big ones. Those are the, yes. And both the two active ones will be active for quite some time.
That's what we asked, how long it would be.
The other three, there's no more room at the other, the three.
I'm sorry?
There's no room at the three that are closed? Is that the situation?
No, they are
completely
we don't even offer. It's not an option, yeah.
There's quite a bit of land in the Waterville. I keep asking that question.
There
I
is.
forget how many acres, so.
Way in the back, there's acres, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Any other comments? Yes.
Brent, I think you answered my question, but maybe just to clarify. So and these are rough numbers you gave, it's like 16, 17, 18, roughly 31,000, maybe 32,000 in revenue. That would be for the sale of plots, and then fees to open the,
Yep.
the
Yep.
site. So if someone bought 10 plots 2 years ago, let's say $100 a plot, it's $1,000. Those monies aren't here today to
Correct.
do whatever.
That's, if
like
they bought it 5 years ago, that was,
spend on
Right.
expenses.
yeah,
Okay.
we don't know, we didn't put that, yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay. And then just the other thing is, it's interesting on the expenses, again, rough numbers. Each year, at least 16 and 17, a deficit of $3,000, and 17, a deficit of 22,000, 21,000, if I'm reading that right.
Those were the expenses.
I'm sorry, 3,500, you said
Yeah.
expenses.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's not including salaries.
Right.
And I can give you an example of what some of those things are. DNR outdoor power, that's lawnmower parts. General hardware, it's probably getting blades sharpened. You know, it's mostly the things that, Superfleet, that's gonna be parts for probably the backhoe, I would imagine. You know, Tire Man, auto service.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's just kind of an example of where these expenses are occurring. It's all in the upkeep of the equipment,
Right.
maintaining that equipment. And our backhoe right now is in, we have to seriously consider what we're going to do very, very soon. It's seen better days, and, you know, for a township who only has one little cemetery, you know, to go out and purchase,
Right.
you know, that type of a piece of equipment, I mean, to justify that is challenging.
So you said it, what do you think what's the fix? What's the,
I'm on board with Mr. Bagnonis' idea. I think the Union Cemetery gives everybody an opportunity to be involved. One person from each entity would be on the
Right.
board. We could actually then, and really, he's the expert explaining on how this works, and I don't know how much you've gotten into that, but I mean, to where we all have a voice on that board, and then we would actually terminate those two people that are currently doing all the maintenance work. We would terminate them as our cemetery people. We would continue to maintain them as our maintenance personnel, but then that board would then hopefully rehire those two people, and they would work for the board. So nothing would change for them on a daily basis, but at the end of the day, if they spent 3 hours working in the cemetery and 6 hours, 5 hours working in Waterville Township maintenance, they're gonna turn one into Waterville Township, the other one into the cemetery board, and that's how their pay is gonna have, right?
Okay.
Isn't that kinda how you would envision that?
Well, I don't know that we've gotten that far into the nuts and
That's,
bolts
yeah,
of it.
okay,
Right.
yeah.
But,
I mean, but the board would be responsible then for collecting the money and running, budgeting, and so.
The board would do exactly what the township's been doing, and then how, we didn't get into the expenses, but just how one would be structured, because you have to pick a number for that budget and decide where to start. But this helps. I mean, we don't have the personnel cost, but we do, sort of. We'll have it a little bit. But as Mr. Bagdonis said, that's an idea. I've already kicked around a lot of ideas, like we have a backhoe, White House has one. Cemeteries don't use them every day, I don't think, 2 cemeteries. But there's ways you can use equipment and charge the district. There's, so you're not out like a whole big piece of equipment, or, there's all kinds of stuff that we could do. But that board would decide that, and everybody would have representation. So they would decide who they pay to mow, how they do it. So, but that would be another step after we decide to do it. And setting the amount we would charge people would probably be the hardest part.
We
of that whole
recently
scenario.
increased those fees. Trustee Hertzfeld did a little research on what other people were charging, and tried to better align us with
That's good.
our neighboring people. So we recently did an increase. I don't know how comparable it is, but he did the research, and we did do an increase.
That's good. Is the next step, or do you have more information?
I was just
Yeah.
gonna say, the structure of a union cemetery is that, the three-member board, I would characterize it as they meet monthly or periodically and kind of take care of the day-to-day operational aspect of it. There is a requirement in the state law that, let's say there's three jurisdictions participating. At the first meeting in May of the largest jurisdiction elected body, the three groups of elected officials meet to set the budget for the next calendar year. And so the property tax millage would be uniform across all the participating jurisdictions. That's set by the elected officials from one year to the next. You look at the planned expenditures, whatever carryover balance, what the revenue needs might be, and you could change the millage up or down each year. And then that group also appoints the three-member cemetery trustee board. Those are 3-year terms, and they are staggered so that each year one of those terms is up. And if there's 3 entities, that would lend itself to one representative from each of the entities. And they then, like I said, meet regularly to more or less oversee the actual day-to-day operations.
Right. And the good thing is, once a year, you have to have that May meeting.
Yes.
And then it would be flexible enough that you'd be able to adjust what you're collecting to make sure it's meeting. I mean, that's a case where you want to have some capital, but you want to adjust it for what you're doing. Yeah. It's not totally predictable, but unfortunately, but yeah, it's not a bad idea. What would be the next step, as White House has asked you the other question? Do you have any idea if like a meeting of the 3 entities is? Because we only briefly talked about it, did research on our own.
Yeah, I was hoping that the 3 could meet, myself,
We could have a representative from each.
representative from each, yes.
Does that work for council, to have them get together and?
Yeah, I'm just a little confused though, because it says here that, the Village of White House would prefer to contract cemetery maintenance and administration with Waterville Township as opposed to a union cemetery.
Well, it was, I don't know if they'd prefer, as they said, I think they asked what would it cost?
I think it's
I
probably
don't-
worth a meeting of the 3 to see if that's the direction they
So
are
they're not
thinking.
opposed to this?
No, in the beginning, well, there was, at one point, we had a meeting here.
Yeah, we were actually here for fire feasibility.
Yes, yes, and so afterward, we had a little side meeting there, but, and there was interest, and that's why we followed up. So, yeah, initially, they were interested, I don't know, I haven't had a discussion recently.
The way their administrator explained it to me, they haven't ruled out any option. I guess their first choice would be to continue the arrangement that Waterville Township has been doing and just have Waterville Township send them a bill. Their second choice would be a union cemetery. The third choice would be to take it in-house and take care of the cemeteries in White House with their own staff. But I don't know if those 3 options are close together in order of preference. That is the order, but I think, well, options 1 or 2 may be closer together than the third option.
Well, what's most cost effective, right?
Right, I think it'd be worth a meeting if we could organize that. One of, whoever wants to do it, and have one person from,
Okay.
I don't know if it'd be Jordan, the mayor.
Mm-hmm. He's who we've been dealing with, yes.
Right.
Yeah, and then he's been passing the information on to council.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. I guess we need to find out if they're interested, and then we can move on from there. So,
Well, it sounds like the next step is they need an answer from Waterville Township as to whether you're willing to make an arrangement like that with them.
I think we'd be better off to sit down, the 3 of us,
Okay.
and see why we're looking at some.
Okay.
And maybe we haven't gotten all of the necessary information. And I have briefly spoke to Mr. Burrell about it, and he's obviously, he's done some research. And
Well, and he was at one of our earlier meetings, and actually, procedurally to set it up is not very complicated.
you know, he said it was,
Simple.
I guess make sure White House has the same information. that
Yeah,
we
they were at
talked
that
about,
meeting too.
But the information we just received and. Okay.
Okay, we'll
Sounds like a
pick a date
plan.
and a time.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Thanks,
to talk
Brett.
about it.
Thanks, Brett.
Appreciate it. Okay. executive session for consideration of a personnel issue, Ohio Revised Code 121.22G1, appointment and compensation of public employees or officials, and we need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Sec-
Roll call, please.
Mayor Brody?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mrs. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Pedro?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Rosen?
Yes.
All right, thank you. We will return to regular session after this, finish our meeting. Yes. We did. Which one? 8B? Yes. Did he miss it? Yes, he did. Well, the public hearing is next time, so. I wonder.
We did it.
You missed it. Hey, I thought I kind of looked up and said, hey.
fast. I knew you'd be happy. That's good. I rushed them. It's my job, rush them. Come on, people. We're never gonna get out of here.
Can I second that?
Come on. We got things to do here.
That's so funny.
Audience is
I felt
dwindling.
bad.
Yes. And we're losing.
Okay.
It's like when I was in the band around midnight. they go-
Okay, we need a motion to come out of executive session.
I move.
Second.
Oh, yeah, you can all fight over it.
All right, roll call, please.
Oh.
What? Oh, sure. Let's do that. No, we can do all in favor. All in
When you
favor?
return to open session, you need roll call also.
Oh, sorry.
You need to do a roll call.
Mr. Rozak?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Pedro?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mayor Brogan?
Yes. Sorry, we usually do that at the end. So we have new business, ordinance 17-18 is an ordinance amending Part 3 of the codified ordinances of the City of Waterville, Schedule 2 of the traffic schedule, speed limits by adding Prairie Boulevard. First reading is scheduled for this evening, August 27th. Our second reading is September 10th. Third reading and our legislative action is scheduled for September 24th. Anybody have any comments on our first reading? We talked about it at our last meeting. Ordinance 18-18 is an ordinance amending Part 3 of the codified ordinances of the City of Waterville, Schedule 1 of the traffic schedule, stop and yield streets by removing the stop signs for both directions of Royal Hampton Lane at Buckeye Lane. First reading is this evening, August 27th. Our second reading is scheduled for September 10th. Third reading and legislative action is scheduled for September 24th. Any questions, comments on that?
I don't want, I can say it for next meeting if you'd rather, or I can
No,
tell you
go
what I've
ahead.
heard.
Go ahead.
Some of the residents, I've talked to a couple of residents who live in Waterville Meadows and also across on Farmview. And they're concerned that if you remove the sign, that it's a very long, straight stretch. It could quickly turn into a dragway 42, so to speak.
Which is why they put it there.
Right.
Right.
Well, we put it there because there was a road intersecting it, but same concern though, yeah.
And you have the park on the, Prairie Trail Park. Kids are crossing that street to get to the park, I assume, from the other developments. So it seems a little dangerous to remove it.
It's a good point. Other comments this evening? All right, well, it's scheduled 2 meetings, but go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Chief LaGrange, the removal of the stop signs on Royal Hampton, that came right out of the safety committee, I believe, right?
Yes, it did. That was something that came up at the safety committee. Don't remember who suggested it, but I think it might have been Scott Yoder. But I'm not sure of that. But there was a question about removing those stop signs and the necessity for having them there.
And the committee, I think,
Yes,
did unanimously
they-
recommend it, so
they
that's
recommended
how
removal.
that came up.
Yeah, no, yeah, I appreciate that. I just don't happen to agree with the committee tonight on that one, so, what do you think, Chief?
We've had a lot of reports of people not stopping for them. We have no accident history there. We know stop signs are not really traffic calming. People just speed up to the next one, and within a very short distance, you have additional stop signs as you come into the neighborhood there, just past the trail, Prairie Trails Park, walking trail. Yeah, I honestly don't see a lot of purpose in having them there. I don't really think they serve much of a purpose, frankly.
So the speed limit will be 25, like it
Still
is.
25, yes.
And the police will probably need to sit there for a little bit.
Yeah,
in
that's
our,
be a good place for our new speed signs when they come in.
exactly. In our neighborhood, which might be the same or a little shorter, they're oval. But I can tell you from the front to the back, as someone that lives at the front, people are way up to 40 miles per hour. Nobody has been hurt that, knock on wood, that I've heard of. But I'm gonna tell you that's how fast they drive on a straightaway. And there's another member, I mean, all of the streets, but I happen to be at the front. So you train your kids not to get close to the street.
Right.
But they do go very, very fast. We've had speed signs, and while I know they're not traffic calming, I don't know, at least you slow down, yeah. And that's also why the other one ended up on that same road. There wasn't one originally there. What's the next crossroad heading towards the primary?
Shadow Ridge.
Yeah, Shadow Ridge. That was a big debate, so we put a sign there.
Oh, really?
Because it was going to be a straightaway all the way
All the
from
way
the
through?
school, you know, where
Yeah.
you curve around from the school all the way down.
And because of the way that road kind of curves as you come in
Yeah.
there, those stop signs there, that three-way there, I can see a lot more.
Yeah, there are a lot of
purpose.
people coming out of there. I agree with you, but that was a big debate at the time, so.
Yeah.
There are a lot more people in there too.
Oh,
than
yeah, a
used to
lot of
be.
people.
Yeah.
By the
Well,
way, that stop sign at Shadow Ridge is hidden
It's
by a
always
tree
been
now.
hidden by a tree, yeah.
Yeah. Part of the issue is the tree, you know, the stop signs have to be mounted at a certain height, bless you, at a certain height above the ground. I don't know what it is, Candy, but we actually raised that one a couple of years ago because it was, somebody complained it was too low. I don't remember what the height is, it's 5 feet, I remember, it's,
We can trim, we can trim the tree, correct? We should do that. It's been like that a long time. I mean, you really can't see it, yeah. All right, any other comments on this one?
Well, I just wanted, so for the record, actually, I was the one that brought it up in committee.
okay.
And we
I remember.
started the conversation about Shadow Ridge and the stop sign there and the function and purpose of it. No, the function, but just seemed like an awkward place for a stop sign.
It
And
was-
then,
It was the drag raceway, to be honest with you.
okay.
It was.
And then the conversation ensued, and then we started talking about Buckeye and the stop signs there. So, that's it.
They will,
Yeah,
it
right.
will be a quick, people will be driving fast.
Yeah, so I
Can
mean,
guarantee it.
I always say, a great place for speed bumps.
Mm-hmm.
I know you guys aren't fans of those.
Something. Other comments
To
until
be
our next
discussed
meeting?
more.
We get to vote, we get to vote in 2 more, so. Alrighty.
Thanks, Chief.
Ordinance 1918 is an ordinance enacting section 521.13 of chapter 521, Health, Safety, and Sanitation of the General Offenses Code in respect to the regulation of emergency alarm systems. This is our first reading, August 27th. Second reading is September 10th. Third reading and legislative action scheduled for September 24th. You received information in your packet. Mr. Bagdones, do you have anything to add on that?
Thank you, Mayor. This is another recommendation from the Safety Committee, and I think it was suggested and supported by the police chief and fire chief. But we've had a number of unnecessary false alarms, and that's a concern when we have our first responders going on an emergency basis to these. It takes them away from other true emergencies. There's a possibility of having an accident on the way to these false alarms. And so other communities, and I think in particular Maumee and Oregon in the area are a couple that the chiefs took a look at. They have legislation similar to this where we would allow, say, 1 false alarm per month, and then for false alarms beyond the first one, there would be a fee, and those fees would be determined by council. The fee legislation would not come up until the third reading of this ordinance, but the staff suggestion would be no fee for the first false alarm in a calendar month, $25 for the second false alarm, and then $50 for each false alarm occurring after the second one in a calendar month. We would like to deter the false alarms and encourage people, if there needs to be repairs or service call on the alarm, we'd like to encourage them to get it repaired, because we certainly want to respond if the alarm is legitimate. But we have had some problems, and in one case, the owner was not real diligent about getting the alarm repaired, and we had quite a few at the same location, and all of them turned out to be false.
Thank you.
And these are structures, not vehicles, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just checking.
Residence and commercial, right?
Correct.
So it's both. Any other questions on this one this evening?
I've got a question.
Yes.
In the fire chief's report, I'm seeing 1 false alarm for the month of July. Is that correct?
Yes. The month we had problems, May and June, they were to 4 in June and 4 in May and 6 in June. He thought he had the problem resolved a year ago, and it came up again. There was another piece of faulty equipment. He neglected it. I told him he had to get it fixed. I told him, I said, this is really a burden on our folks that have to show up in the middle of the night. They have full-time jobs to go to, including myself. They here. The deputy chief, it runs into a lot of money. And he just kind of wrote it off. I issued him a citation. It's $1,000 a day fine. It kind of perked him up a little bit. Then he decided, well, maybe you better get fixed. Part of it was who he was working with to get it accomplished. So I gave him some guidance on it. He took care of it. But I mean, basically when we do inspections, we make them fix the deficiencies they have from their alarm companies that they receive. Most people are cooperative, and every once in a while we get somebody doesn't want to. But this will help us immensely. And police-wise, I can't speak for them as far as residences. But.
And then my second question was, are these fees in line with what other municipalities are we checked into?
Actually, these would be lower, I believe.
I thought they were kind of low.
No. The way we do fees, not just in this case, but in other cases, and we use the language as determined from time to time by council. The fees are set by resolution. We have a fee schedule. So it doesn't require changing the entire ordinance. Council, as it sees fit, can change the fees up or down as often as you determine. So I thought, and I think the two chiefs were thinking, we don't want to be punitive. We want to encourage them to be diligent about taking care of these situations where there is a false alarm. If we find that 25 and 50 isn't achieving that goal, then it's not difficult for council to modify those fees. But we thought it might be better to start at a lower number, and then we can always raise it. But that's to be determined by council. I guess you give us guidance when we get to that point.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Chief. Resolution 43-18, a resolution authorizing the municipal administrator to enter into a contract with Highland Administrative Services, Inc., administrator of the Ohio Government Risk Management Plan for comprehensive property, casualty, and liability insurance coverages. And we've been with Highland for quite a while, and I think their latest proposal was favorable. Mr. Bagdonis, do you have anything to add to that?
I think that's a pretty good summary there. We have been with Highland, we think at least since 1988. In this case, the renewal would reduce the premium from $43,892 to $43,396, and some of the coverages are actually increased for that premium. So their service has been very good. We've been very happy with their response when we have needed to discuss claims with them.
Thank you. I do think sometime in the past 15 years, I do remember we went out for different bids, so we have looked, but lately we've had a great rate from
Yes,
good
I think
service.
the most recent time was 3 years ago.
Right. Just to give a history on it, but yeah. Any other questions? And if not, we need a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we have Resolution 44-18, a resolution authorizing the municipal administrator to award a contract to Hanks Plumbing and Heating Company, Inc. for the Dutch Road and Anthony Wayne Trail water line extension. This is our water line project we've been talking about. And Mr. Bagdos, do you want to go over the
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
project?
This is the water line that would extend from North River Road west along Dutch Road, roughly to the Anthony Wayne Trail. There's 3 existing customers there that were recently annexed, McDonald's, a funeral home, and urgent care. And this would change those customers over from the Lucas County water system to our water system. Also, this would be the first step to connect 2 dead-end lines together. North River Road is a very long dead-end line. Also, the line we have on the Anthony Wayne Trail is a long dead end that ends roughly at Cleanwood. And the next phase of this project would extend along the Anthony Wayne Trail from Dutch Road down to Cleanwood. So once that connection is made, we would, by this one water line on Dutch Road, eliminate 2 dead ends. And especially in the case of a fire flow, instead of having water coming through the distribution system from one direction, by looping the lines together, you dramatically increase the flow of water by being able to bring it from 2 different directions. In our water system master plan that we did a few years ago, this was actually one of the top recommendations to eliminate these 2 dead ends. You see attached to the resolution, there's a summary of the bids, and we got some very good bids. They were under the estimate, and so therefore they're actually under the budgeted amount that we had for this project.
Thank you. We would need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, do we have any discussion or questions, comments?
I know it's early in the game, but do we expect any kind of latches or sewer lids or screws or something that's gonna
Parts that might take a long time
Yeah.
to order in, or
fires out west or no?
That was in Tennessee.
Hurricane,
Yeah.
hurricane in
well,
Hawaii, gonna
let's
hold
do
up
our
the
best
parts.
to all be on board in this one. And
This is a pretty straightforward water line project. There's
That's why I
really
asked the
no-
question.
No equipment or pump
I asked the
stations
same thing.
involved. And in fact, if you look at the bids, we had 2 alternates. One was an open cut trench, and the other is directional drilling. And we were very happy to see that the directional drilling actually was quite a bit less expensive than the open cut. And the parts of Dutch Road that we're going along, much of that is still a county road, and the county engineer was strongly encouraging us not to trench through their pavement. And that part of Dutch Road, if you remember what it looks like on the sides of the road, there's some steep slopes there, and actually there's a lot of utilities already in the ground. There's a major power line along the north side, so it's pretty crowded with utilities. So the directional drilling actually is beneficial for not just the cost reason, but it avoids cutting the pavement and all the other utilities that are in the way right now too.
Good,
So,
that's good information.
yes. Any other questions? We have a motion and a second.
I just have a question.
Yes.
Just of interest. Are these closed bids when they come in?
yeah, they're sealed. They submit sealed bids, and we come in this room at the designated day and time. Usually each bidder has a representative physically present, and we zip open the bids and read them aloud in the presence of everyone in the room.
There's no money from the state for this, is there, Jim?
No.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we have Resolution 45-18, a resolution authorizing the municipal administrator to enter into a contract with Jones and Henry Engineers LTD for construction engineering services for the Dutch Road and Anthony Wayne Trail water line extension. And this is the project we just spoke of, and this is the actual engineering services required. Mr. Bagdonis,
This would be what we
anything else?
normally refer to as the inspection
The
of the
inspection.
construction.
We need a motion and a second.
I'll move.
Second?
Any other questions or discussion on this one? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 46-18 is a resolution authorizing the municipal administrator to enter into an agreement between the County of Lucas and the City of Waterville to convey the ownership of a 12-inch diameter water line along Dutch Road to the city. Mr. Bagdonis, would you like to give the background on that?
This also is related to the project we just talked about, and as I mentioned, those 3 customers are currently on the Lucas County water system, and this 12-inch water line was put in by the developer at the time those buildings were first built. And as part of this project, we would connect onto this 12-inch water line and incorporate it into our water system and disconnect it from the county system. This is identical to the arrangement we have with the county on Waterville-Monclova Road, where they conveyed, in that case, it was a 16-inch water line over to us. And so we do need a written agreement where both parties agree to the transfer of the ownership of that water line.
Thank you. Need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions or discussion? I would say so this actual water line and the one in Waterville, Monclova increases our water lines, right, that we take care of.
Yes.
So, but it also, sort of part of the prior project we talked about, do we have any more dead-end water lines since we've?
Well, this project doesn't eliminate the dead ends. It takes a big step toward eliminating them. But we'll
Right.
still have several hundred feet of water line to construct along the Anthony Wayne Trail.
Right.
What this conveyance from the county to the city allows us to do is, otherwise, we would have to put a brand-new water line in parallel to and right next to this existing one.
Right.
And that's not a good expenditure of taxpayers' money. And I think the county recognizes that too, that by giving it to us, it saves us the need of putting in a parallel water line, and they have no use of a water line that's not gonna serve any customers.
Exactly, and that one is relatively new, right, in the last 20 years? Like, I remember them putting in Dutch.
It would have been put in about the time McDonald's was built.
Yeah, it hasn't, so it's not too old. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next, we have Resolution 47-18, a resolution amending an employment agreement by and between the City of Waterville and James M. Bagdonis. Mr. Bagdonis,
Thank you.
so tell us about this one.
The employment agreement between myself and the city, and this goes back to December of 2012, requires a written notice of 270 days, and I think there has been agreement that that's probably an excessive amount of notice, and that 120 days would be a reasonable length of time in a case like that. And that's all this would do, is change that one section of the agreement from 270 days to 120 days.
Thank you. So this would amend the contract, and we would need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, next we have other information and unscheduled business. Do we have any?
I have one.
Yes. All right. Mr. Bagdonis. You have a handout.
I have a handout, and if it's all right, I would like to read it.
Yes.
To Mayor Brody and council members, as I've said many times, it's my privilege to serve as the municipal administrator of the city of Waterville. Therefore, it is with very mixed emotions that, in accordance with the amended section 11 of my employment agreement with the city, I hereby provide written notice of my retirement from full-time employment with the city. My last day of full-time employment will be Friday, January 4th, 2019. The timing of my retirement is largely based on the anticipated retirements in a number of other management level city positions in the near term, and my belief that the next municipal administrator should have the opportunity to fill those positions. I certainly have enjoyed my years working for the citizens of Waterville, and I believe the city has benefited from my efforts as a small part of the city team. I would like to thank all of the mayors, council members, committee members, department heads, and the entire city staff that I have worked with over the past 14 years for their dedicated service to the city. All of those individuals work hard to make Waterville a better place for everyone, and I'm sure they will continue to move the city forward in the future. It has been my distinct pleasure to work with them. I offer my full cooperation and assistance to the next Waterville Municipal Administrator to assure a smooth transition. I would also be available to work for the city in a part-time capacity after my retirement if desired. Thank you for allowing me to serve the citizens of Waterville.
Well, it's with
Thank you.
mixed feelings that we let him read that letter, but at least the news is still here to report on it. Sorry the meeting was so late. The crowd has left, but we have been talking about it with the retirements that are coming for our staff, and I just want to thank Mr. Bagdonis for all the years. I think I've been here the whole time he's been here, except 2 years I was retired in the middle, but now you get to retire. So I came back as mayor, and I'll just say that I'm thankful that Mr. Bagdonis was here, that he came when I was on council, and we were looking for an administrator. Waterville is definitely a better place since he has been here, and the things that have been set into place are going to make the job so much easier for the next person, because a lot of time was put into looping water lines as one example. But actually, I just want to thank him. I can't thank him enough. I'm always willing to learn, and I will say I probably learned most of what I know from Mr. Bagdonis as far as cities, infrastructure, and things I never thought I would learn about. But it was great, and I couldn't have done it without having somebody who was so good at what they do. A lot of small towns our size do not get the benefit of very experienced people with bigger cities, and I thank him and many times over for coming to a smaller town, close to his hometown, and for doing what he did for Waterville. So we just thank you. If anybody has any comments, we'll have time. We have 120 days, but I just feel like I have to thank him because we've spent a lot of time working together. So we will accept this letter, sadly, but we do understand, and I think I speak for everybody, we wish you well-earned retirement. You earned it. You've worked really hard and you deserve it. So I know it's a big decision, but I surely hope you enjoy it. And I picture that you will, so I can't wait to hear about that. But
Riding his motorcycles.
Thank you very much for the kind words, I appreciate
yes,
it.
anybody else, but we will definitely make sure we celebrate this. So any comments tonight? We just wanted to make sure we were able to announce it at a meeting. So
You spoke well for all of us, Mayor. I don't think we don't have anything to add at this point other than congratulations and well done, Jim.
Thank you.
well done.
Enjoy those grandkids.
Job well done. All right, and I have one more piece of other information, unless anybody else has any before I speak. And this is happy, so we'll get happy again. We are fortunate that we were able to interview someone who currently works for us, and we have offered the position as the next administrator to John Gokenauer, our current finance director, and clerk of council, and income tax commissioner, and all those jobs. Wait, and zoning, goes to zoning plan, and zoning inspector for now. We did interview. We were able to look at someone internally, which makes us a very fortunate town. He has worked for us now for a while, and he has mastered the finance area, in my opinion, and so he has accepted that position. So when the transition takes place, good news, everybody, we have an administrator, but we will be looking for a finance director. So I would just like to let everybody know that Mr. Gokenauer has accepted the position, and we are happy that he will be taking that position as administrator. So thank you.
Thank you.
We hope he'll be here the next 20 years or so. All righty, any other information or unscheduled business?
Well, I think I promised 5, but I stayed 14.
Yeah. Yeah. So you never say never.
So be
Yeah.
careful.
It's such a great place. You're not going to regret it. So, we do have one more executive session. We're setting a record. Conference with the Law Director, Ohio Revised Code 121.22G2, purchase or sale of property for public purposes. And we need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Brody?
Yes.
Mr. Frye?
Yeah.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mrs. Duncan?
Yes.
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 Thank you. There'll be no further business conducted when we return.
Happen to have copies
You have-
handy to
Boy,
sign.
you're not ready to go or anything.
Sign it.